Section 4.6, we are factoring trinomials. So in this section, you will have three terms. So if you have three terms that look like ax squared plus bx plus c, then we would use the following steps here to factor. So it's a good idea for you to maybe write notes as you're listening to this so you can remember what to do. But when you have a trinomial, your first step is to check to make sure that you have the correct order. So make sure you have your x squared, your x, and then your constant term in that order. Also, you want to factor out the GCF if there is one. And then the second step is when we factor trinomials, remember that you use two parentheses. So we have two possible parentheses, and you have to determine what the signs in the parentheses are. So there's two rules or two possibilities, and it's good to remember the sign rules because it makes factoring a lot easier. So what you do is it says if the C term is negative, so if this last number here is negative, then we will have opposite signs, meaning you have plus minus or you have minus plus. So if the C term is negative, the signs will be opposite. The other possibility is if the C term is positive, then we will have the same sign. So if your C term is positive, they're both plus plus or they're both minus minus. So how do we know when we have both positive or both negative? Well, look at the B term. So both positive means that B and C are positive. So B and C are positive, then we have pluses here. If your B is negative and C is positive, so if your B is negative, then we have two negative signs. So these are good rules to remember and memorize because they will help you when you get to your factoring. And then your last step here, number 3, is check your answer. And there's a really quick way to check your answer, and you should always check all of your answers for factoring. It's really quick and easy, and you'll always know if your answer is correct or incorrect. So always check, especially when you're taking your quizzes and your tests. Really important. Okay, so let's take a look at number 18 first. And this is on page 337 in your text. And it's number 18 and number 24. So let's start with number 18 first. And we want to make sure that our trinomial is in order. So your exponents should be in descending order, which in this case they are. Next, I want to see if there's a GCF. So look at this carefully and notice that there is a GCF of 2x. So we need to factor that out first. Okay, so we have our GCF, and then you need to write what the resulting trinomial is. So let's go ahead and do that. So that's gonna be 4x squared minus 3x and then minus 1. And you can check your work by distributing 2x back into the parentheses. Make sure you get back the original problem. Okay, next. Now we're going to focus on the trinomial inside the parentheses. So I will bring down my 2x. You need two parentheses. Okay, remember that since my C term here, our C term is negative 1, this is negative. That implies I have opposite signs. Okay, so I just wrote plus minus, and then we need to make sure we put the numbers in the correct place. Okay, so now you need to focus on the 4, and we need to focus on the 1. So you need factors of 4 that will give you, so I need two factors of 4, so we can use 2 and 2, or you can use 4 and 1. So let's take a look at trying to see if 4x and 1x work. I'm trying to get the middle term. Okay, now factors of 1 are just 1 and 1. So let's see if this is going to work out. So I have a 1 here, and I have a 1 here. And it's always a good idea, by the way, to use pencil when you're doing this, because if you haven't done this before, or if it's been a long time since you have factored, you probably need to use a pencil, and you probably will have to erase certain things that you write. But the more problems you do, the better you'll get at it. But using a pencil is really good, because most of the time we do make mistakes and we just have to fix them. But here's how you check your work. It's really easy. Multiply the inner ones, which gives us a positive 1x. Multiply the outer terms, which give us a negative 4x. You want to combine, so 1x minus 4x, that's a negative 3x. What you get here needs to be the exact same term as your middle term. So these two match, which means I have factored this correctly. If you did not get a negative 3x, that means that maybe you have to switch your signs, or you might have to use different factors. Okay? So now we're done. We can box our answer. Let's now also take a look at 24. So for 24, make sure that your terms are in descending order, which they are. We have y squared, y, and the constant, so the order is good. Next step is you want to check to see if there's a GCF. So I have to find the largest number that goes into negative 45, 30, and 120, and the largest number is going to be 15. But what I want to do is I want to factor out a negative 15. You want the first term to be positive. It's just easier when you factor. So if you have a negative first term, factor out a negative. So we'll have a negative 15, parentheses, and then we want to write what we get inside, so that'll be 3y squared minus 2y minus 8. Remember, factoring out a negative changes the signs on the inside. Okay, so we have our GCF. Bring that down to parentheses. Again, we need to make sure that we write in the correct values here. So you have to look at factors of 3 and factors of negative 8. Since the last number is negative, I know that we are going to have opposite signs. So I'm going to show you. Let's use a pencil so I can show you what it'll be like if you need to change things around. So let me start here. So we'll have opposite signs. So I'm going to put a plus here and a minus here. Hopefully you can see this. Okay, factors of 3 are just 3 and 1, so we don't have any other choice. Factors of 8, we can use 2 and 4. You can use 1 and 8. Let's try 2 and 4. So let's say I put the 4 here and I put the 2 here. Okay, and now you want to see if this is correct. So check your work. Multiply, we get 4y. Multiply those two, we get a negative 6y. So we combine these, and if you combine them, that gives you a negative 2y, which is exactly what we have here. So let me just retrace this. Okay, so again, multiply the inner and the outer, combine, you should get your middle term. If you didn't get the middle term, that's okay. You just need to fix what's inside the parentheses. Most of the time, just switching the signs works. Sometimes you might have to use different factors. Like maybe instead of 4 and 2, you would have had to use 1 and 8. Just depends on the problem. So I can now box this, and then we're done. The only way to be really good at factoring is to practice the problems and just factor as many problems as you have time to factor. Check your answers with the back of the book, and also check your answer in this form that I have used here, and it should all be good.